we're going to talk about side-splitting comedies for kids of all ages. One of the best ways to bring your family together and really connect is through laughter. So, after a long day of fun in the sun, watching family comedies together can be a great way to bond and create some fabulous memories. However, when it comes to kid-friendly comedy, it's a jungle out there. Finding age-appropriate or content-appropriate movies that are still funny can be really hard. I have 108 top comedies to watch this summer with the kids that are sure to bring laughter and joy to your family. So what is appropriate is really arbitrary. I feel like I had to police or censor or oversee a lot as my boys were growing. Honestly, I did not have the time to watch movies ahead of time to make sure they were appropriate. And everyone has a different meter for what they consider appropriate or that they do or do not want their kids to watch. For me, it was sex, horror, and real-life doom that causes anxiety. I did not care much about swear words as long as they were used in a place that I would use them, like, holy flying catfish, Batman, I walked into a bear trap and I think my foot is cut off. Yeah, I would totally tolerate a curse word instead of the holy flying catfish, Batman, right there. But gratuitous swearing, I'm not a fan. Violence also did not bother me that much. My children were not violent kids. Now, I don't mean, I can't remember what that John Travolta, Pulp Fiction. I don't mean Pulp Fiction kind of violence, like you just go on killing sprees. But some violence wasn't something that hit my radar. It had to be saturated in violence for it to really hit my radar. My boys were not rough and tumble kind of kids. So they were able to watch films that had kind of violence in them, and we liked action. Here's the thing, though. You don't always know how much violence is a little bit of violence and how much is super bad, or how much swearing is swearing that's in the right place and how much is gratuitous swearing. You just don't know. And you don't know how it's going to land on your measure meter. So you have to watch it first. Well, I didn't have time, like I said, so I just went with the ratings. If my kids were under 13, they couldn't watch a PG-13 movie. They could not watch R until they were 17. I know by today's parenting standards, this sounds really harsh, but it made my life really easy, and it made the kids' line really clear. They knew exactly what I would say yes to. They didn't have to ask because it was already a given. Now, sometimes they still ended up watching inappropriate films while using that rating system, inappropriate under what my rating would be. Spaceballs is a perfect example. My youngest watched it when he was 7, and he loved it. He thought it was so great. He talked on and on and on about it, so I thought I would be a great parent, and I bought it for him. He never told me why it was so wonderful, and if I had been a really good parent, I actually would have taken time and had that discussion. I just don't remember a whole lot of time back then. Well, Spaceballs was made in the 1980s. The ratings were not the same. They didn't even have the rating PG-13 back then. Spaceballs would definitely have been a PG-13 if it were rated with that system in mind. If you want a little more control over what the kiddos watch, but you do not have time to actually pre-screen every film, consider commonsensemedia.com. So common, COMMON, sense, SENCESE, media. And I'll have the link in the notes. They have parental reviews, and these parents have time to get out their little notebook and do check marks of every single cuss word and every single sexual nuance or overtone and violence. Every single anything that happens in that film, those people write down. Any kind of religious things that you want to know, if it undermines how you feel or if it has too many religious overtones, trust me, it's all on common sense. So we're going to jump into recommended comedies for younger children. These are your kiddos that are ages 5 to 9. And I started with 5 to 9 simply because I really don't think kids that are younger than 5 really should be watching movies or screens. And that's my personal opinion, but that's why I'm starting with this age. So the things you're looking for in a comedy for this age group, for the humor, is slapstick kind of comedy, wordplay, and easy to see visual gags. Themes are school adventures, family dynamics, imaginative. They have huge imaginations, imaginative storylines, and talking animals. Engaging characters. You're looking for relatable characters, and this is going to come up in almost every single age group. Kids who watch movies like to see characters they can relate to, even if it's a skunk. Right? It's not like they can relate to this stunt per se, but if that character's going through something that they can relate to, then that's a big plus. They also want to be able to root for the heroes, and they want characters that face age-appropriate challenges. They don't want to watch a movie about a child who's facing, and this is what's coming to me, and I know this isn't really appropriate, but this is what's coming to me. They don't want to watch someone who's wondering what to do about a boyfriend who really wants to have sex, right? That's not even close to what their age-appropriate challenges are. They're worried about the bully on the playground, that kind of thing. There are a lot of funny movies for this age group. I tried not to put a whole bunch by Disney or Pixar or any of DreamWorks or any of those. However, almost all of those are really funny, so you can almost always go with those. I also tried to go with some older films that they just may have slipped off your radar. Also, there's usually 33 to 34 in each category. I'm not going to list all of them for any of my age groups. I'm going to list 5 of our favorites that we've seen, and then our top favorite in the house that the boys just loved. Not necessarily my favorite, but the boys in that age group loved that movie. So you can go to the blog and you can see the whole list. But the kids, for this age group, the overall favorite was Shrek. And I know I just said I didn't want to do DreamWorks or anything like that, but I couldn't get around it with this one. Even with all the other options, Shrek was by far the favorite. Boss Baby, they liked that one. Cool Runnings. If you don't know about Cool Runnings, that was one I actually even showed in my 6th grade classroom. That's a true story about a Jamaican bobsled team, and it's very funny. Fern Gully. This is an animated story about a spirited fairy that teams up with a bat to save their forest from a logging company. The bat is played by Robin Williams. It's one of his first voiceovers that I know of, and he is hysterical. Over the Hedge and Shark Tale, and those round out our favorites for that. So recommended comedies for children ages 10 to 12. Now, this is really interesting because the 5 to 9 had a really big age group. 10 to 12 is a really narrow group, but these are your preteens. These are the hardest kids to get movies for, and I'll tell you why in a minute. The humor you're looking for is clever wordplay, situational comedy. So it might not be funny if you take it out of that situation, but within that situation, it's really funny. And age-appropriate wit. They like to be known as smart. This age group really likes to be smart, so they want witty humor within their age group. Themes are positive messages such as self-discovery, friendship, acceptance, and empathy. Reflection of self. Your teen really needs to see themselves as the hero or heroine that they can admire, at least from time to time. They're going through a really hard time in their life from 10 to 12, and the more they can see good reflected back at them that they can identify as them, it's really good. You need positive images like body image. That's also something that's really important. So why is this age group so incredibly difficult? Preteens are really tough because they are very conscious of not being babies. So oftentimes they don't want to watch animated movies, not because they don't really, really want to see them, because they do. They really, really want to see them, especially if it's like a series like Toy Story had a series and they might have loved the characters and fallen in love with them, and then they want to continue it out, right? But they don't want to see it because they're afraid that that reflects on who they are. They're big on the reflection of what it says about them. So they're like, oh, I'm seeing a kid's movie, so obviously people are going to think I'm a kid. So you need to find movies that are in the middle for these groups. And remember, they can't be PG-13 because I don't do the PG-13 if they're under 13. So I chose movies that I feel are good in-betweeners. The top 5 are Big Daddy, and Big Daddy I'm kind of conscious of. My kids just love this one, but it is an Adam Sandler. So if you're nervous about Adam Sandler, you're going to want to go to Common Sense Media and check out the things about that. Big Fat Liar. Oh my heck. I did not like this movie at all. My kids thought this was hysterical, and they are now 28 and 23. They still remember this movie. With all the movies you can have, they still remember this. They thought this was hysterical. Kindergarten Cop. This is an Arnold Schwarzenegger in a kindergarten classroom. How can that not be funny? Mrs. Doubtfire. So this is a man who pretends to be a woman so that he can get into the house of his ex-wife to hang out with his kids. So just the whole situation is funny because he has to do things to make sure his wig stays on and all kinds of things. The Tooth Fairy. So kind of like how Arnold was in the odd situation in the kindergarten class. In this one, The Rock was a hockey player and he ends up having to become the Tooth Fairy. So that's funny. Now, the overall favorite that my kids loved at this age was Guardians of the Galaxy. Recommended comedies for teens. You're looking for in the humor. Your teens love witty dialogue, sarcasm, satire, and clever observational humor. The themes are independence, self-discovery, responsibility. Your kids are really going towards that responsibility, and empathy. The characters should definitely be relatable to who they are, and they love exploring themes such as high school experiences, coming of age challenges, friendship dynamics, and the complexity of what they're going through in their lives. I am well aware that many of the movies that I chose, because remember, there's a list of like 34 on the website. I'm just listing the 5 here and then our one major favorite. Many teens are going to think these are beneath them because they're not R, and they really want to grow up fast. Your teens do. The independence and growing up fast, that is so important to teens, and they want to go to the R movies. But you can also remember that I go based on content and the rating, and I didn't allow for R's. So, content example. Austin Powers, that is a PG-13, and it is a comedy. So you would think, well, of course, that would be on here, my list. Nope, it totally hits my radar as not appropriate. So that's why you have to go based on your own appropriate things. Usually, the kids are going to enjoy the films that I have on this list, whether they think they would rather be watching something else or whether they thought they would like it to begin with. They usually would like these. Overall, hands down, the favorite for my boys was Men in Black. Central Intelligence. This is about an accountant who gets swept into a weird scheme of espionage, and he ends up having to be an agent. Jungle to Jungle. So a businessman discovers he has a son who's been living in the Amazon, and he brings him to New York. It's kind of a jungle, right? Legally Blonde. Okay, this is my favorite. This is so funny. And Look Who's Talking. This is all from a baby's perspective. John Travolta plays it, the baby. No, John Travolta plays the parent. Bruce Willis plays the baby. And so the things like when the grandma is doing the little faces and everything, he's like, why are you making those faces at me, lady? You know, things like that. So it's really funny. And then Shanghai Noon. This is another one of my favorite comedies. And it's a Western. So in a world that can sometimes feel overwhelming, the last thing you want to do is face the challenge of finding appropriate family comedies. These fun comedies are divided by age, remind us of the pleasure of simply laughing together. So curl up together, sit back, and enjoy. The movie quote, just smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave, from Penguins of Madagascar. If you are hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode. And for that, I want to send you a huge thank you. Please leave me a comment or review and share with other moms you know. Get in touch in the comments or on Kara's social media networks. See you next week for a new episode.